Hi friends, good morning. Welcome to Annamaya IAS Academy. This is Dr. Harinath Reddy, Director of the Institute. So today in this particular video, we will try to discuss about one more question which has come on Indian polity in the UPSC mains exam. Yesterday we started with a special edition on GS paper 2, in which we will try to discuss answers for the previous year's questions related to GS paper 2. Yesterday we had a discussion on civil and political rights versus economic and cultural rights. So today in this particular video we will try to discuss about the concept of constitution versus constitutionalism. In the optional paper, law optional paper, paper 1, there was one question which has come. This is the question. Constitutionalism is the concept of limited government under a fundamental law. Constitutionalism is the concept of limited government under a fundamental law. In the light of the above statement, differentiate between constitution and constitutionalism. See, many of the students, they might have heard about the concept of constitution, but not constitutionalism. So most of you may not be very clear about the concept of constitutionalism. So the question is about, is there a difference between the concept of constitution and the constitutionalism? I feel that this is a very good question, possible to come again in GS paper 2 or PUBAD or PSR. Please do remember, questions which were asked in the UPSC mains exam, sometimes the questions asked in GS papers, they appear in the mains optionals. Questions which come in the optional, they appear in the GS paper 2. So if polity is part of PUBAD, PSIR and law, nothing wrong in going into these questions and trying to make answers for these questions, because most of the times they get repeated in both GS and optionals usually. So remember, in the question, the constitutionalism definition is already given. If you are a clever student, if you are a student with a lot of wisdom, you can try to know the meaning of constitutionalism from the question itself. If you can understand the concept of constitutionalism, you can imagine and then write answer for the difference between constitution and constitutionalism. Because in the question itself there is a clue. In the question it was defined. Constitutionalism was defined. How it was defined? Constitutionalism is the concept of limited government under a fundamental law. So what does this mean? Take India. India has got a written constitution. So in India, the constitutional document is the supreme law. It is the basic law. It is the highest law. So all the three branches of the government, all the three organs of the government, which we say executive, legislature, judiciary, together they form government. Government is nothing but three branches of the government or three organs of the government: executive, legislature and judiciary. You all know that legislature does law making, executive does law implementation, judiciary does law interpretation. So the powers of the three branches of the government, they are defined in the constitution. The three branches of the government can exercise only those powers which are conferred on them by the constitution. In other words, the constitution puts limitations on the powers of the three branches of the government. So it is the constitution which defines what powers the executive, legislature and judiciary should exercise. So that's why in the question it was said, constitutionalism is the concept of government with limited powers under a fundamental law. Here fundamental law means constitution. So let us try to differentiate between constitution and constitutionalism. So constitution in any country is the supreme law. It is the basic law. It is the fundamental law. And what does the constitution try to tell about? So the constitution in any country will define the nature of the government, what kind of government prevails in that particular country. For example, in India we have a parliamentary democracy. In India we have a federal constitution. So this is the nature of Indian constitution, federal constitution with a parliamentary democracy. So a constitution defines the nature of the government. It defines the structure of the government. What are the three branches of the government? What are their powers? What is the relationship between the three branches of the government? It's not only that. Constitution also speaks about the rights and the duties of the citizens. It also speaks about the relationship between the state and the citizen, government and the people. It is not only that, it also speaks about the duties of the state and the limitations on the powers of the state. So that's the definition of the constitution. So a constitution is the highest law, the supreme law, the basic law, which defines the nature of the government, the branches of the government, the relationship between different branches of the government, the rights and duties of the citizens, the relationship between the citizen and the government. All this is defined by the constitution. So for a constitution to survive for long, it is expected to have certain features. So what are the ideal features of a constitution? One is suitability, stability, adaptability, clarity. See, a constitution which is made for any country must reflect the requirements of the people of that country. It must suit to the requirements of that particular country. Suitability. If a constitution is not suitable to the requirements of the country, then it cannot survive for long. That's one requirement, suitability. The second one, adaptability. Any constitutional document which is capable of changing to the changing circumstances can survive for long. So a constitution must not only be suitable to the requirements of the country, it should also have the flexibility to change and adapt to the changing circumstances. That is adaptability. The next one is a stability. The purpose of the constitution is to give stability to the society and the country where the constitution is worked upon. It's not only that. The other important feature of the constitution is clarity. So if the constitution is written in clear language, then the interpretation of the constitution by the courts in that country becomes more easy. But if the constitution contains language which is not clear, it creates friction between the different branches of the government. So an ideal constitution must have the features of suitability, adaptability, stability, and clarity. Then what is constitutionalism? Remember, all the countries which contain constitution need not contain constitutionalism. For example, if you take countries like North Korea, if you take countries like China, these countries, they do have constitution, but they don't have the philosophy of constitutionalism there. I just told you what is constitutionalism, the constitutional document limiting the powers of the government. In North Korea, in China, there are constitutions, but the government's power is not checked. There is no limitation, there are no restrictions, there are no restraints on the power of the government. So these countries like North Korea and China, though they have constitutions, they don't have constitutionalism. On the other hand, on the contrary, in most of the countries today which have democracies, there is both constitution and constitutionalism. For example, if you take India, United Kingdom, United States of America, these countries have got constitution and also constitutionalism. For example, in India, the powers of the executive, legislature, judiciary, they are defined by the constitutional document. That's why in India we have both constitution and the constitutionalism. Constitutionalism also has got certain features. To say that one particular country has got the philosophy of constitutionalism, that country must contain the following features. In that country, there must be supremacy of the constitution. There must be sovereignty of the people, the supreme power residing in the hands of the people. So supremacy of the constitution, sovereignty of the people, and then rule of law, independent judiciary with the power of judicial review, separation of powers, checks and balances, accountable and responsible democratic governments with the right to vote and periodical transfer of power, and then protection to the rights of the people. If these features are present, then we say that the constitution of that country contains the philosophy of constitutionalism. So, if you see the history of the growth of constitutionalism, the idea of constitutionalism, it took both in United Kingdom. If you remember, parliamentary democracy in United Kingdom, it started in 1215 AD. So in 1215 AD, there was something called Magna Carta. So Magna Carta, it is an important charter which was signed between the King of United Kingdom and the feudal landlords there. So Magna Carta has curtailed the arbitrary powers of the king. That's why we say the beginning of parliamentary democracy in United Kingdom, the beginning of constitutionalism in the modern world, it began in the United Kingdom in 1215 AD. Later on, in the Bill of Rights in 1689 was the culmination of the philosophy of constitutionalism. The French Revolution of 1789, the American Revolution of 1776, they have also laid down the philosophy of constitutionalism in the constitutions of these countries. So that's the history of evolution of constitutionalism. So and this is the difference between the concept of constitution and the constitutionalism. So that's it. That's the answer for the question which has come in the law optional paper 1. Thank you and all the best.